Yay! Here it goes. All right. So I am here parked in the Harrisburg area waiting for my dentist to take me in because over the weekend and even last week I developed a nasty toothache. It's right here and it's killing me. So I'm here waiting. My appointment's, I don't even know what time it is, but it's like 11:30 and my appointment was supposed to be or is supposed to be at 2:30. So I'm here waiting. I'm bored. I don't want to go into Marshalls or Home Goods because I don't want to spend that much money. I know that I will. Hi, Kayla. Ichela, amiguita. Mwah, mwah, mwah. So I figured you might as well just chat with friends and do a little live. And I've been wanting to do this talk about how we're guided by our spiritual guides, our angels, and our loved ones on the other side. Hi. So I've been playing with this filter. It doesn't work. Anyway, this filter is supposed to, that you raise your hand and little sparkles come out. Anyway, so in the spiritual realm, there's hierarchies, right? And Silvichi, mwah, besos. And obviously there is God, which is the source of all creation, right? It's all love. And then there's the archangels, the masters, the beings that are in charge of taking care of the whole human race and beyond, right? Then there's the angels and their sort of hierarchies, and then there's our spiritual guides. Our spiritual guides are assigned to us before we are born into the earth to guide us, obviously, to be with us, but they, unlike the angels, they are not allowed to change our free will. So each one of us are born with a free will. We can just make our own decisions. We can screw up. We can, we're allowed to make our own decisions and take different paths. An angel or an archangel, they can change that. They can, in order to protect us, if we're in great danger, if we are not supposed to die, they can intervene without us calling them. Guides cannot intervene. Guides can only be there for you if you ask for them to be with you. And then there's our family and even friends, good friends of ours, on the other side. Those guys are also allowed to guide you. They're also allowed to be with you during tough moments, during happy moments, but they cannot intervene in, your life or intervene your free will. You will make your own choices. And if you're, not meant to be into something, only an angel or an archangel can move you, literally save you from a burning car and pull you right out. A guide cannot. So with that said, my daddy, as you guys know, most of you guys know, is on the other side now. I miss him terribly. So there's the part of me being a dense human that misses him horribly, that wishes he would still be here, that still has trouble, especially at night, accepting that he's gone, right? That his humanness is gone. However, there's spiritual side in me, and this side accepts and honors and respects his will, his free will, right? The fact that he didn't tell us that he was diabetic, the fact that we wanted to take him to the hospital and he didn't want to go, all that, my spiritual side respects it and honors it. You know, my captain, that's your free will, that's what you decided, and I respect that. It was your time to go. We all make contracts before coming into this earth, and in his contract, hi Molly, hi Beth, mwah. He accorded with God when it was the time for him to return to the other side, return home. There were so many signs, even before he got sick, that I would like to share with you guys. You know, and I know that some people don't really believe in these things. Some people believe in other things. Some people are very religious. Some people, you know, have other beliefs than mine, and whatever resonates with you, I respect that. I'm not trying to change anybody's point of view, but this is what happened to me. And if it resonates with you, I love when people share with me via PM, like they messages or they call me, you know, hey Vanessa, I lived the same thing with my dad, with my mom, with whatever. And hi Angie. And I love to share these kinds of things, because it actually makes me feel like I'm helping somebody. Like, you know, we all go through this. We all lose people, and if I can help somebody to deal with it a little better, at least you may feel like you're not alone, right? And you are not. Please reach out. Before he even got sick, he got sick at the beginning of December. Right around, so Thanksgiving, we spent it together. Obviously, they moved up to live with us before that. And Thanksgiving was awesome. We were celebrating there at home, just the 6 of us. The day after, I woke up and it wasn't that happiness anymore. Something was off. I literally told Brian, I feel like I'm mourning the loss of somebody. Who? I don't know. You know, he was like, what are you talking about? I don't know. I just feel like I'm mourning the loss of somebody. And obviously there was nobody, you know, in danger, so we thought. And he even told me, you know, I mean, look around, we're all good, we're all here. That's just, you know, it's no big deal. Just get your mind off of that. The feeling grew as the days went, and I started feeling the more, you know, the more days got closer to December, I started feeling like I was mourning more and more and more and more, and I was more sad, and I didn't know why. Beginning of December, one time I was at my office and I heard him cough and sneeze, and it was a little bit more than just a little cough, sneeze. So I remember coming out of my office and he was in the kitchen, and I told him, I said, Daddy, you having a little cold there? Yeah, I know. And I'm like, okay, what about I give you some of my vitamin C that I just bought and some blah blah blah, some vitamins. It's like, oh, okay, I know you're gonna start with your witchery, because he used to call me my little witch, right? You're gonna start with your witchery on me? Yes, but just please take them. So I gave them to him, and that was it. You know, we didn't think anything of it. They had just gotten over a cold, so it was like, you got a cold again, right? A few days later, that was probably like a Monday, right around Thursday, he went upstairs to take a nap, and I saw him. He was you know, like he was in the middle of that head cold, and he went upstairs to take a nap to recover, and me and my mom were downstairs. I started to feel a little bit of that cold, and I was on the couch, my mom was on the other couch, and he came downstairs teary-eyed, and I was like, what's going on? And he sat with us, and he said, I was in that stage where you're not completely 100% asleep, but you're not awake. It's called a theta, I guess, stage, or state. And I heard your grandfather talk to me. And granted, my grandfather passed away many, many years ago when I was 13. And his nickname, because of his indigenous blood, his nickname was White Feather. So my dad referred to him as White Feather. He said, you know, I heard White Feather. He came to me. He came to visit. Now, keep in mind, my dad wasn't the spiritual guy type of, you know, kind of guy. He was not, I mean, he believes in God, but he's not the spiritual kind. He didn't go to church. He was very respectful, but he wasn't the kind of guy, like, if I would tell him, guess what, I saw this, or blah, 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 he was like, oh, okay, but like, you're out there, right? And when he told me that, I was like, oh, he came and visited you. He said, yeah. Tears just rolling down his cheeks, and he said, he told me, come on. Pato was my dad's nickname. He had a little bit of a waddle when he walked due to polio when he was little. He got over it, but his left leg, was affected. And so my grandpa lovingly called him Pato, which is duck, in English. So he said, yep, White Feather came and he told me, come on, duck, get up, you're already healed, come on, just get up, I already healed you. And then he said, when I woke up, I heard his whistle, and I didn't know what to think, so I just came downstairs to tell you guys. My mom was like, oh, really? Wow, that's cool though. I mean, right? That's a good thing. And I just stood there frozen. My dad was the oldest of 9 children. And I've had at least 3 or 4 uncles and aunts pass away. Every time we say goodbye to an uncle, they literally report that my grandfather, White Feather, comes to visit them. And in one way or another, whether they die of cancer or they die of, you know, like they passed away in a hospital setting or at their homes, but not suddenly. They always say, you know, yeah, White Feather came to visit me. So when my dad said that, it was like, whoa, like that's good that he came, but like, why, right? And that was the second thing that started my soul to believe this was the start of his journey back home. I did not want to believe that, right? Like my humanness, my human Vanessa was like, no, he's fine. He has a cold. What the hell? But deep inside me, my soul Vanessa was like, be prepared, right? one time in the middle of the night, Brian and I were sleeping. Well, everybody was sleeping, but Brian and I were sleeping. And we have a fan, one of those flat fans that you put on the floor, for it to have that white noise for Danny and ourselves as well, because we have like the same room. Yeah, she sleeps in our room still because mommy is extremely paranoid. But she has her own bed and she has her own part of the room. It will be like the sitting area of our room. She sleeps there, so we put a fan on, and all of a sudden we're sleeping and we hear this boom. We're like, what the hell? So I stood up. I thought Danny fell off the bed. So I ran to see what was happening, and I see the fan, which, mind you, has, I mean, it's flat, but it has legs that come across here. There's no way anything would have tipped it. I mean, unless you push the fan forward, it will fall. Well, it fell forward. And I was like, why did this fall? I pick it up, I put it again, you know, not against anything, I just put it up there, turn around, go back to bed, boom, again. I'm like, so Brian stands up, he's like, do you know what time it is? I'm like, I have no idea. He's like, it's 2:22. Oh, okay. I am a firm believer in communication from our angels with numbers, right? Numerology and all that stuff. 2:22. Okay. So I look it up. The next morning, obviously, I put the fan against her bed and it didn't fog anymore. And the next morning I look it up and it literally was message of angels to let you know you're not alone, or the challenging times were coming, or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, well, we don't need challenging times, right? But okay, thank you, I guess. Then another night, Lulu, our puppy, needed to go outside. So I'm like, all right, I'll take her out. It was nighttime. It was raining, like really raining, and it was cold. So I'm like, she's not gonna want to go, but I'll just give it a try. I put her harness on, open the door, and there's a bird in my porch. And the bird was big and literally came at me, and instead of hitting me in the face, it was just like right here, and it started like flapping around, but right here in my face. And I was like, oh my god, it startled me. And it, you know, in my head, I'm like, okay, is that a bird or a bat? Because if it's a bat, I'm just gonna crap myself here. So I closed the door and I'm like, ah! And then right beside our front door, there's two little peak windows, long peak windows. And I look, and the bird literally went into the window and went like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, oh my god, the poor bird has no idea what to do. Maybe it was trapped in here. I don't know. Like, so I opened the door, and when I opened the door, there's no bird. No bird, no flapping. It didn't fly away because I would have seen it. 1 second, it was flapping around in that window. When I opened the door, the next second, there's no bird. No bird. So I remember I come back, like the poor dog didn't even come out, right? I come back and I tell my parents. And like I said, my dad wasn't a very spiritual guy. And he just stood there like, oh, that's weird. I'm like, yeah, it's probably a sign that we're all good, that we're gonna be okay, blah, blah, blah. And he just stood there like thinking, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay. Too many signs. Something's going on. Something's happening. Then that Friday, I started feeling really cold. I started feeling not well. And I told my boss, you know what? I think I'm just gonna take a nap. I have a massive headache. I'm very cold. I don't feel well. Okay, go ahead. So I took a nap. When I woke up, I was like cold sweating, clammy, just not feeling well at all. And I told my parents, I don't feel well. That head cold, you know, you gave it to me, and ha ha ha, we laughed. The next day, I couldn't even get up from the bed. I couldn't. I was in bed all day, literally all day. Low fever, but aches. I mean, my bones ache, my joints. If I stood up, I had to walk like, you know, like clenched over. Sunday, the same thing, but I tried to at least be a mom or be a resemblance of a mom. And I went down to the couch, but I couldn't get off the couch. So I'm like, oh my God, please not let this be COVID. And my dad had this cough now that was starting to be productive. Monday morning, I wake up. I'm like, oh, I feel better. Okay, this was just a little cold, right? I get out of my bedroom and I see him coming upstairs. And he turns into my mom's bedroom because they both had their own bedrooms. My dad snored really bad. So my mom was like, you have your own bedroom. And he turns to look at my mom. Her bedroom door was open. And he tells her, Mamacita, can you please make the girls breakfast? Like, granted, he used to make the girls breakfast every morning. He was such a sweetheart. And he tells her, can you make the girls breakfast? I can't. And he turns to look at me and he was shaking. Like, his hands, I remember, he was like this. And he was like, I'm like, what's wrong? Oh no, it's just I drank some lemonade this morning and I put some ice and that made me really cold. So I'm just gonna go and you know, get in bed and I'll be good. I'm like, all right, that's not good. All day he spent in bed. Next day, same thing. Next time he tried to get up, he went downstairs, but he just went right back up, lay down in bed. Next day, he tried to come downstairs and he passed out on the couch. He just couldn't really function. And every day I was hoping he would get better, but he didn't. He started declining really fast. He tried, you know, he tried to make breakfast for the girls every morning. I was like, no, Daddy, don't worry about it. So I'll come upstairs and, you know, cut up some melon and, you know, make a sandwich or whatever, bring it up. But towards the end of the week, he wasn't having it. He wasn't eating. I try to give him like vitamins, supplements, nothing was staying. So by around Friday, I come upstairs and my mom is developing symptoms by this time. Maddie has a full-blown cold and nasty cough. So we're quarantining at this time. Danny is the only one who has no symptoms whatsoever. And Brian was starting to get the sniffles, but not as bad. I come upstairs with their breakfast. Granted, I'm still sick. And my mom was in my dad's bedroom sitting on the bed and he was on the recliner. And she goes, I said, well, how are you guys doing? And she's like, well, hanging in there. And my dad just nodded, you know. He's like, well, we're good. I'm like, no, you're not. And my mom asks me, how are you doing? And I just broke down crying. And I said, I'm scared. I'm petrified. I see you guys so sick. I want to take you guys to the hospital. No, it's okay. So she stands up, gives me a hug. He stands up, gives me a hug. So it was the three of us hugging, right? And I could still feel that hug. To this day, I can. That was the last hug I got from them together and from him. By Saturday, he had these huge dark circles and he just looked so different. His face was so different. His mouth, his lips were so different. So I told Brian, you know what? I don't care if he doesn't want to go to a hospital. Let's take him. So he's like, you know what, let's just go to the urgent care and see. I mean, maybe it's just he needs antibiotics, maybe it's just the chest, you know. And he takes him to urgent care. Urgent care doctor is like, take him to the hospital right now. His oxygen is 88. He takes him to the hospital. When they get out from the door, I didn't want to make it a big deal, so I didn't hug him. And I was like, all right, Daddy, you're gonna be good. You just need some antibiotics. You come right back. All right. I will be back. Yep. Blew a kiss. That was the last time I saw him. He spent 2 weeks at the hospital. On Christmas Day, they told us, you know what? He needs to be intubated. He was actually asking to be intubated. He couldn't breathe anymore. I would call him every day, at least 3 times a day. Daddy, are you okay? Let's do our exercises. And we would make like breathing exercises, right? Like 1, 2, 3, and he would count with me. 1, 2, 3, and then we'd go. And then by the end of that week, he was like, and he was in high flow oxygen, maxed out. He had a mask maxed out, so he was ready. He gets intubated on Christmas Day. Fucking Christmas. Sorry. It sucked. And that morning, things started happening, you know, that now it makes sense. He gets intubated at night on the 25th. The morning of the 26th, which was literally like 4 a.m. So that night at 4 a.m. My dog wakes us up. She had peed in the carpet. She almost never does upstairs. Like, that's not normal. So I'm like, oh, great, right? So Brian and I wake up. We're trying to clean this thing. And I see my phone. At that point, I was a slave of my phone. I couldn't... Oh, Michelle, preciosa. Te amo, amiguita. At that point, I had my phone with me all the time because I was scared to death something would happen, or he would call me, or well, I mean, he couldn't call me at the time, but before he got intubated, he would call me sometimes. So I had my phone not silenced all the time with me. Somehow my phone got silenced that night, and I wake up and I look at my phone and there were 5 lost calls from the hospital. I freak out. I call them, and the nurse told me, listen, your dad went into shock. His body didn't accept the intubation very good, and his blood pressure dropped, and then it went sky high, and we couldn't stabilize him, and we thought we would lose him. And I just wanted to let you know, I lost my shit. She told me right now he's stable, but it's not looking good. Somehow my phone got silenced. And I'm not sure still how. But anyway, I have a really good friend of mine, Heather. She has a special gift. Really special gift. She is a clairvoyance, clairsentience. She's a medium. And I call her the next day. I'm like, Heather, he's not gonna make it, is he? And she just stood there on the phone line. She's like, you're strong. You can take and you can handle whatever God gives you. I just want to let you know that at this point, your dad, he's in an induced coma. His silver cord is thinning. What's a silver cord? The cord that supposedly attach the attachment between our soul and our bodies. And she said his silver cord is thinning. There's not much you can do but stay strong. And I lost it. And I said, why did my phone get silenced, and she goes, because you weren't meant to pick it up. And at this point, him being in a coma state, he's outside of his body more than he is inside. He's starting to learn how to travel around and give you signs of what's to come. He most likely did that. He didn't want you to freak out as much, I guess. You know, it would have been horrible if he's dying and you're getting phone calls. Oh, by the way, your dad is dying right now. So he went ahead and did that. And I was just like, but how? He's still alive. How can his soul come out of his body, right? And she's like, because if he's meant to return to the other side, his body or his soul is already being pulled out. He's already, he's able to go around and give you guys signs. The morning of the 28th, my mom comes out of her room and she tells me, you know, I think your dad came last night or this morning. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I went into his room and I opened the windows, and right outside the windows there was a big red bird, a cardinal, and it just stared at me, and it just looked at me, and I started talking to him, and it was like if the cardinal could understand me or hear me. And then I was like, oh man. And I remember what my friend Heather told me, and I said, yep, I bet that was him. Then on the 28th at night, well, that day they called us from the hospital and they said his kidneys are injured because of the shock he went into from the intubation. His kidneys just are failing now, and he's probably gonna need dialysis. We're talking about, you know, maybe putting him on the dialysis the next day. And I asked them, I said, well, what are the chances of him recovering? Like, is it gonna be just a session? Or I don't know how that dialysis thing works, right? Is he gonna recover? And the doctor said, well, his numbers are getting worse and worse and worse. The chances of him recovering, being 82, with his lungs failing and his blood pressure all over the place, are slim to none. I still held on to hope, and well, I hung up the phone. But at nighttime, it was like, okay, something's telling me to call, you know. By the time he got intubated, I didn't call as much because there was no point. I couldn't talk to him. But I called at night and I asked the nurse, please let me know if this was your dad, what would you do? And she told me, you're just putting off something that is gonna happen. He is suffering and he's not gonna come back. So I asked Cole to talk to the doctor. The doctor told me the same thing. And that's when I was like, nope. He often told me and Brian, I'm never gonna wanna be an old person. I don't ever want me to, or I don't ever want anybody to take care of me, to change my diapers, to like do anything, like spoon feed me. I don't want to get to that point. You know, he was very like matter of fact guy. And he would always tell me, if the time comes, when the time comes, I just want to get the fuck out of here. You know, in his words, he was very loving, very funny, but it was a matter of fact. Like, by the time I'm done in this earth, let me get the fuck out of here. And I said, well, what's the point, right? The guy wants to go. It's his time. Let's respect that. And all I kept saying to everybody during those couple weeks was, he's in talks with God. If he needs to go, he needs to go, and we need to release him. And everybody I was like, no, what are you talking about? Brian even got mad at me. You know, my dad often called Brian his best friend. He often would say, Brian is not my son-in-law. Like, it doesn't even feel like my son-in-law. It just feels like my best friend. And thank you for finding my best friend. Thank you for marrying my best friend, right? They were best buddies. So Brian, I mean, you can imagine losing your best friend. Brian was like in denial. No, I'm still holding on to hope. He's gonna come back. He's gonna walk through that door. You'll see, you watch. And I said, come here, let's talk. And we went to our little meeting room, which is the closet, because obviously the kids interrupt the hell out of us every time we try to talk. And we went into the closet and we sat down. And obviously I was shaking uncontrollably. Obviously crying, but controlled. And he looked at me and his eyes got real big. He said, what's going on? I said, I just got off the phone with the nurse, the head nurse, and the doctor. And they all agree that we're just putting off something that is meant to happen. That's gonna happen. He's in a great deal of pain. He's suffering. Now, this is obviously the doctor's point of view, right? According to my friend Heather and all the NDEs that I've listened to. NDEs stands for near-death experiences, and it fascinates me. It fascinates me to hear people that have come this close to dying, how they go to a place where there's no pain, no suffering, all light, they're embraced in love, and then they have the chance to decide if they want to come back. And then they tell their story. Even before my dad's journey, I was fascinated with NDEs. And I remembered, well, if he's in this state, just hanging, literally hanging by a little thread, and he's in a coma state, he's not in there. He's not suffering. However, there's no point of trying to bring him back because he's 82. He wants to go, right? He's not letting go because of us, but if we release him, it's going to be beautiful for him. And transitioning from earth to the other side is just as honorable and just as spiritual and just as beautiful as the transition from us being born. And I was given the gift to release him into light. It's still a little hard to talk about it, but thinking about it thoroughly, it's been an honor and it's been a gift. He welcomed me when I was born with all his love in his arms. He embraced me with all his love. But now it was my time. It was my time to release him in love and to have him be born to the other side. So I did. We hung up the phone with the doctors. Brian and I decided it was time to disconnect him. And the doctor actually allowed me to come to the hospital and disconnect him. I stood up, helped Brian stand up, and hugged him. And when I hugged him, there's this song that started playing. So we're like, okay, wait a minute. Oh, we talked to the girls, and then the girls left. Obviously, they were devastated. They cried, and they left. We told them, we told Maddie, take Danny to the other room because we're going to tell Abuela. We hugged, and this music starts playing. I'm like, trying to figure out if it's coming from the other room or what's happening. I looked at Brian, and I'm like, do you hear that song? I was like, yeah. Okay. Where's it coming from? I don't know. So I pull my phone and I look at it. I'm like, that's not my phone. He pulls his phone from his back pocket and he looks at it and he's like, wouldn't you know? My phone activated by itself. And it's Pandora. And it's playing a song. And I'm like, okay. wouldn't you know what song it was? So somehow Pandora activated by itself and started playing Silent Night, which it was one of my dad's favorite songs. But also, if you translate like the name in Spanish, translated directly to English, it's called Night of Peace. That was my sign that it was my dad's night of peace. He told us, you're doing the right thing. This is my night of peace. I honored it. We went to talk to my mom. We told her what was happening. We had a moment. And then I got up and left. I drove by myself to York Hospital, somehow shaking, crying, laughing, remembering things. Somehow I was carried. I was not alone. I mean, I was in body alone, but I was not alone in my car. I was guided to the hospital. When I got in there, I was shaking so uncontrollably that I could barely walk. And I got in there. They signed me in and all that stuff. They registered me. And when I was going through the hallways, they had at York Hospital, they have big clocks. And they're digital. And in each one of them, the time was 11:11, 11:11, 11:11, which is a big sign for me that my angels are watching over, that I'm not alone. Same thing happened with Danny when Danny went through what she went through. So I walked down the hallways until I get to the ICU where my dad was. Everything was 11:11. The floor was 11:11. Everything was 11:11. And I got there, and when I saw him, it was a big hit to my gut. He didn't look the same. I'll spare you from details because it was not pretty, but that was definitely another confirmation that he needed to go. It wasn't humane to keep him like that. So I sat with him, I ripped my mask off, and I kissed him all over his face. I kissed his hands. I put his hand on my cheek. I told him that it was time to go. I told him that the nurses were gonna come in to disconnect him. All those nasty tubes and cables that he was complaining about, that he was not happy to have, they were coming off. And I gave him his blessing, gave him a hug, cuddled a little bit with him. And that was it. That was the last time I saw him. I told him he was going to come home with me. I was there to pick him up as I had promised. I said, Daddy, I'm here. I'm here to pick you up. I promised you I was going to come get you, and I'm here. And it's time to go home. So, obviously, he got cremated. He got put in a very pretty Redskins urn. My beautiful Redskins fan is in a Redskins urn. And the next day, I went to the store because my mom wanted to make some huevos rancheros, which is a Mexican plate in honor of him, because that was one of his favorite plates, and he needed cilantro. So I went to the store, and when I get off the car, right at my feet, huge white feather. Oh, I have it here. I put it in my car. There it is. Look how beautiful it is. What are the chances? Just out of nowhere. This is like, what bird has this, right? I have no idea. And this is fluffy and beautiful. I have no idea. Look, compared to my face, that's how big it is. My grandpa was white feather, and I have no doubt that my grandpa was with him the whole entire time, from the minute his soul started to elevate, from the minute he came to visit him and told him he was healed, till his last breath. That feather was my sign of I made it well, I made it to the other side, and I am with White Feather. And from then on, look, there's another thing right here. Maddie found this one. There's another one. Maddie found this one in my car. She's also very sensitive to these things. I have another white feather that I found in Maddie's room, just out of nowhere, just there in a corner. I was talking to her, I turned around, I'm like, oh, there's a white feather. Interesting. I don't know where. The other day I was talking to my mom, and I was in this very elevated state of mind. I had just done a meditation. I was happy. I was like, I started this project, so I was like so happy. This makes me happy, right? So I was happy, and I went upstairs to tell my mom, about my meditation. And in my meditation, I saw my dad, and that just makes me so happy. I go upstairs and I sat on her bed, and I started talking to her, and all of a sudden, something just goes like right up here. I even crossed my eyes. I'm like, what the heck is that? And it went down. I thought it was a bug, so I went like this, and it just flew very slowly and landed on my mom's leg. This is in her room, out of nowhere. We're talking about him, and all of a sudden, this tiny, like I'm talking this tiny little white feather from the ceiling somewhere just shows up in front of her and me, like in between us, and lands on my mom's leg. What? I have no doubt there's something beyond our human minds that we cannot understand. They don't die. We don't die. We just transition. We just change forms. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. It can only be transformed. We are energy, right? Quantum physics, quantum mechanics is the science that studies atomic and subatomic levels or states. And in a subatomic state, an atom is 95 or 98% energy, and the rest is matter. 95% energy, or 98, I don't know. Energy, and the rest is matter. And everything we touch, including ourselves, is made out of atoms. So we are energy. We're 95% energy, I guess. The rest is matter. We can manipulate energy. We are energy. Our energy doesn't just end and gets destroyed when we take our last breaths. We transition into another form of energy, but we remain. There's no such thing as hell. If you behave badly, you go to hell. No, the hell is here, and we decide to make it hellish for us. Nobody's gonna judge us when we go to the other side but ourselves. There's such a thing as a life review that you will be able to experience when you take your last breath and you see what you've done in life. This blows my mind, guys. To know that my dad is in such beautiful place and is giving me signs, and I can still have him around me even though I cannot touch him or hold him or you know, all that stuff we do with them. I close my eyes, I meditate, and I see him. If I meditate with a pen and paper, I'm able to write things that come to my mind, and when I read them, when I'm done with the meditation, it's like, whoa, that didn't come out of me. You know, and I read them to my mom, and she's just like, whoa, that's something your dad would say. You know, I've talked to mediums, my friend Heather, and then another very famous medium called named Francine Milano. She's awesome. And I had a session with her a couple weeks ago, and she literally told me, your dad, such a happy guy. She doesn't know anything about my dad. She doesn't know that he transitioned. She doesn't know me and my story, like nothing. And out of nowhere, she goes, you know, I'm feeling this vibe that there's this male energy, your dad, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, and he's saying something about his best friend. Is Brian your, like, his best friend or something? I'm like, they used to call each other best friends. Oh, and then he's showing me like it's not like a formal dining room, it's like a little sunroom with a table, and he sits there and he's reading, but it's not the newspaper, it's something else. I'm like, that's what he used to do. Every morning he would go into his spot in the sunroom at the table and start reading like the wise promotions or sales or the Sam's Club sales or whatever, and that's what he used to do, you know. And then she told me, she's like, he's very proud of you. He thinks you should start your own business. That's something he would say. He often told me, start your own business. I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't want to deal with whatever BS that I need to start a business. And she told me, he's saying that you need to start your own business. I'm like, oh, great. Now I guess I need to honor it. You know, she told me so many things, that he's happy, that he made it to the other side. He's good. I've actually seen him in meditations. The one time I actually was hugging his sweater. I went to take his sweater out of his closet, and I put it around me. And I was smelling him, and it was like hugging him. And I was able to see him in a meditation, and his big bright face, right? Big smile. He told me, look, it's awesome. Like, he was explosive, right? He's like, look, he's awesome. It's awesome here. Look. And he shows me like this with his hand. He's like, look, can you see all this wonderful place? I'm like, all I could see was white. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you, Daddy. He was like, yeah, Mamacita, you don't need to worry about me. And then he just blew me a kiss. And he waved goodbye. And he went his merry way. He's also manifested himself in dreams. And, you know, at the beginning I used to feel very guilty about not doing the right thing to save him, right? I didn't take him to a hospital soon enough. I didn't make him stay at home. I didn't like this and that and the other. Give him enough supplements, like whatever, right? And he showed me in a dream. He was younger, black hair, plumpier, and super happy. And he showed up, and I was able to lean on his shoulder, and he was smiling, and I was showing him something, and we were laughing and whatnot. And then he told me, he said, well, a voice told me. The voice told me, he's like, you know, if your dad wouldn't have passed in such a peaceful setting, like a hospital bed, such controlled setting, and so peaceful, this would have happened. And then I saw my dad and my mom walking around some markets, and all of a sudden my dad collapsing. Like I said, we didn't know he had diabetes, so I knew it was a heart attack. And my mom went down on her knees and tried to pick him up. And she looked around, and she was terrified, and she was destroyed, and she was screaming and crying, and she has a heart condition herself. So that showed me that it was his time, and that it was the best plan for him to cross over. I couldn't control, and I will never have been able to control the way he crossed over. So for the people who are like me and tend to feel guilty and tend to feel like, you know, bad daughter, bad son, for not do more for our parents, let me tell you one thing. You are enough. You do enough. If it's not meant to happen, it's not meant to happen. But if it was meant to happen, no matter what you do, it will happen. And if it goes according to plan, it's way better. You know, a peaceful passing is always way better. And 82 years old. I mean, I wanted him to stay until 100, right? But that was me. That was me being selfish and being human, and I want my daddy here. Well, no, Vanessa, it's not, you know, it's not your plan. You know nothing about divine plans. It was his plan. It was God's plan. And I was always reassured by my guides, by my angels, that I was not going to be alone. All those signs that I explained to you guys earlier led me to know that I was not alone, that I've never been alone, and that I can do this. And now I'm deciding to turn this traumatic experience bad. Well, no, because again, it's his plan, but traumatic to me, right? I've decided to turn this traumatic experience into something good, because if I can help somebody, same with Danny's journey, if I can help just one person, if somebody can relate to what I've gone through and we can help each other, then his journey is not in vain, right? It's always in the name of the greatest good. And all the things, all the signs, I see little lights, little purple lights. He manifests himself in purple lights, especially when I'm upstairs in his room, especially when I'm upset. I see little sparkles of light. The one time he hated when I yelled at Danny or Maddie, usually Maddie because she's the hellish one, but he hated when I yelled at Maddie, and he would often tell me, stop yelling at her, she's a kid, blah blah blah. And I was like, really? You're enabling her, right? That's why she's a brat, because you guys like enable her. And the one time, this was a couple weeks after he passed, Maddie, well, she's felt it, right? It was her beloved grandfather, and she came out of her room, and she was upstairs in the what we call the bridge, and she was being mouthy, and she told me something, and I snapped back, and I was in the kitchen. I was like, right? And she just looked at me, and right next to her, right here, boom, a big light, just like a big sparkle. I'm like, oh, I know who that was. Somebody was yelling at me from heaven. They were giving me hell for yelling at his little baby. And that made me smile, and that made me laugh and happy, actually. And I started laughing. You know, I was yelling at Maddie, and all of a sudden I started laughing. And Maddie's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, this just happened. She's like, see, mommy, even on the other side, Abuelo's yelling at you because you're being so unfair. Yes, I'm so unfair. I'm the worst mom in the world. But those little things, those little signs, you know, I see, you know, I'll be talking to my mom on the way to the dentist last week, and because I had already started the pain, and my mom and I were talking about signs from him. we were talking about that and we were so excited. I'm like, it just makes me so happy when he gives me signs. It's like, yeah, I know. It makes me feel like he's in an awesome place, right? And we can deal with it here, as long as he's good. I'm like, yep. Get to the doctor's office. We walk in, and there's a jersey, a Redskins jersey, just hanging there, out of nowhere, in the back of a chair. I'm like, there's your sign. There's your sign. A Redskins jersey in Mechanicsburg, PA. I'm aware that nobody likes the Redskins, but we do. And that's our sign. There are signs in little things everywhere. You just have to pay attention. You can't overthink the signs that your loved ones give you. We all have those signs, but it's up to us to see them. It's up to us to take them, as signs. Pay attention. Don't force them, but pay attention. And when you see them, when you get them, when you hear them, could be a song, could be Redskins jerseys, it could be sunglasses like Angie, it could be a shape of something, anything that reminds you of them is a sign that they are right there with you and they're okay. You just got to pay attention. You just got to listen, look for them, and not overthink them, because if you overthink them, poof, it's gone. It loses its magic, right? Believe. And, well, I think I'm already close to the hour. I thought I was going to take less, but now it's just too much fun to talk and talk and talk, because usually at home when I start talking like this, I get interrupted with a mommy. So thank you guys for listening. Reach out. I'm here. You're not alone. I know I'm not alone. All my love. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I love you. Bye bye.